Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T Willard.
The United States spends trillions, that's right, trillions with a T, every year on social safety net programs for people in all steps of life, from childhood to retirement. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, an article entitled Study Cites Returns on Child Programs. What we're looking at today is a new study from two Harvard University economists where they examine 133 U.S. policy changes over the past half century, including the creation of programs like Medicare, Medicaid expansions, the introduction of food stamps, as well as dozens of state and local programs. What they've done is provided us a return on investment, so to speak, for these programs, for every dollar invested, to put it in a real easy way to look at. Now, why do you care about this? Well, hopefully from the opening, I'll reiterate, spends trillions every year. Now, in fairness, depending on how and what you consider social safety net programs, the U.S. spends somewhere between, arguably on the low side, $600 billion, and on the high side, well over $2 billion a year. Again, depends on what you classify. For example, some people may say, okay, well, Medicare doesn't count because it's for taking care of old people. It's not really it's not a welfare program per se. So that's why we're using the term social program, because we're encompassing all of these programs designed to take care of people, as it pointed out, in all steps of life, from childhood through retirement. But of course, no conversation on retirement, childhood, and return on investment would be complete without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Okay, so to set the trap, if a program saves more money than is spent on it,
right,
then that's a program we should probably fund more so than another, correct?
Using basic reasoning?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, before we get into
but then to extend
before we get into talking about programs,
okay.
I just wanted to make specific programs.
But to extend your basic reasoning,
yes,
then the programs that are losing, in other words, you're getting no return, you're seeing a loss on your investment, then we should invest less in those. Basic reasoning. Reasoning.
Sure.
Okay. But we're going to talk about the nuances.
But we didn't
right?
say wipe them out.
No.
We just said maybe spend less.
No, okay.
Well, but I would also say, why couldn't you continue those spending levels, but increase spending in the areas where you're seeing a solid return for your investment?
I'm not sure why I did a rundown today. We took the thing that I had for the very end and just moved it to the front. But that's okay.
That's because that's what I want to do.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. So anyway,
I'm excited about this one because I've got a strong feeling on especially one of said programs.
Okay. So let's talk about an example to give you an idea of what exactly we're talking about. How has this return on investment been presented to us? So a reminder, if you'd like to follow along with this information, where can people go, Lance?
thestateofus.org.
Thestateofus.org. So if you want to follow along, articles linked there. Yep. And we'll also have a video linked there today.
It's thestateofus.org. That is stateofus.org.
That was pretty good.
I don't think you made that as hyped as we needed to. Lance shared the video.
Yes. Lance,
it's a big day for us.
The video on thestateofus.org was shared by Lance. So the example that we're getting to, say that you have $1 to give a social policy. You could strengthen the safety net for adults, say boosting health insurance, unemployment benefits, and disability insurance. Or you could give it to programs for low-income children. Adults use benefits that end up costing additional money, an extra 60 cents or so on top of the $1 you first spent. So we spend $1, we lose the $1, and then we lose another 60 cents.
Mm-hmm.
But healthcare and education for kids often reduces dependence on aid and lifts earnings. Over time, you get back the $1 that you put in, so you made back your initial investment, and you make about 47 cents. Now, there's a nice chart attached to this that you'll see. that kind of illustrates. When I first looked at the chart, I was like, what the heck is going on? If you've listened to what I've said so far, it makes more sense what you're looking at. It gives us a range of 0 to 70 in ages and from -$2 to +$1. Okay.
Which is why you should go to thestateofus.org
That's
and
right.
click on the article.
That's right.
Because then you can see the
it.
chart. Yeah.
And starting at about age 20, okay? So programs that are available for people before they're 20 that help people who are younger than 20, they all have a return on investment. In other words, we make more than we spend. We make back the initial investment, and then there's extra money that we benefit from on top of that. For programs, okay, Lance, for anybody age 20 or over, that includes things like job training, college, top tax rates, disability insurance, adult health, nutrition assistance, unemployment insurance. All of those are net losers. They cost more than the initial investment. So we invested $1 and it took more than the $1.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's what we're looking at. Evaluating social programs though, Lance, and there's a couple considerations here, right? Mm-hmm. So if we just look at these based on their payoff, there are some limitations.
That may not be fair.
Right. For example.
Well, it's not the whole picture.
Right.
It is part of the picture, but it's not the entire picture.
It would be unfair to look at it only on that. It's not wrong. It is what it is. But for example, Medicare was created to provide a safety net for the old and for people who were sick. And it wasn't really ever intended to pay for itself. In other words, we built a program that wasn't designed to create a return on investment.
Right.
It's just here to take care of people. So that's also important when we're looking at some of these programs. You don't want to just say, okay, well, it's a loser, so we cut it. We also have to look at what was the intent of this program. A lot of these programs, though, especially for working age people, those are important to remember that those are ones where we're often looking at trying to lift people out of a bad situation. So those are the ones that I think you use this data to look most critically at.
Do you want me to, okay, we used to have this, well, I used to have this debate, this lesson when I taught social programs in my American history class. Why do I have to pay taxes to take care of your grandparents?
You don't have to.
Your grandma. Yes, I do.
No, you can leave.
Yes, I do. No.
You can leave the U.S.
No. I do. As a U.S. citizen, okay. I have to pay taxes to take care of. I know you don't remember this debate because you don't remember anything about my class, but we had this one, and I always got called.
I remember things about your class.
I always got called a lot of names, and people wanted to know if my grandma was mean to me, if she didn't make cookies for me. And I said, no. My family, I'm perfectly willing to pay to take care of my grandma, but why do I have to pay taxes out of my hard-earned money to take care of your grandma?
Is it rhetorical, or do you want me to answer? I can give you what I think my answer is to it.
You can give me an answer, and it's also, but obviously it's rhetorical to the audience to make them think about it a little bit. When you talk about these programs that don't give a return, but when you then make the statement, but of course this is what we need to have them. Do we? I'm just throwing that out there. Do we, as a rhetorical, think about, do we have to do this? Should you be responsible? Because I didn't go on vacation all those years because I got an extra education to get paid more money, and I saved it so that I could take care of my mother when she was elderly, so I could take care of my grandma. And you decided to go to Florida every summer, and you decided to buy a bigger house, and you decided to buy new furniture every couple of years, and you always pay a lease for a new car. Every 2 years you trade your car in. Because you made those decisions, I have to pay tax dollars to take care of your grandparents? Why didn't you make that sacrifice? Then we can get rid of the program that's losing money, i.e. for healthcare for the elderly, and we could spend more money on young people and incorporate more young people and get an even bigger return. So there's the question, okay? And before you start shooting daggers and, it's ethics@truechat.com. I'm not hating on old people. I am old people. But there is that question, right? I mean, it's not just, hey, these are old people, so we need to pay for them.
The Medicare program started in
we being the American taxpayer.
The Medicare program started in 1966 to bring in your historical perspective here. It was passed in 1965, but didn't actually start, taking effect until 1966. And the reason that I bring that up is because for the majority of our history, we didn't have this.
Right.
So it's not, again, there's a lot of these things that we're talking about today where it's like, oh, well,
and it was an addendum.
That's how it's always been.
And it was an addendum to Social Security.
Right.
Which came out of the Great Depression, 1935.
It is administered under the Social Security Administration.
So it's an addendum to Social Security, which hasn't always been around either.
Correct.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or
all
not.
you millennials out there, all our good young listeners. Now, actually, probably all of our listeners. I guess we probably have very few listeners. They'd be what? 70? Yeah, we probably have some listeners.
We have some.
70 some that
we got them.
Remember life.
Why are you hating on old people?
Because I is one.
Okay. So it's okay.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question from before.
Go ahead.
No, we don't need to do this. But I also think that.
Should we?
So it's not a secret, right? That, we've tried to let people know on this show without getting too into it that I'm running for an elected office right now. And the reason I bring that up is we've been to a little over 1,400 doors, Lance, as of this last weekend. Okay. So we've talked to a lot of people, and I am amazed at the number of people have some symbols maybe, on their house, in their house, or something that indicates to me, what I would believe to be a certain moral code that they might have. And then who turn around and say, when we're talking about stuff, they're not criticizing me. They're just sharing an opinion. When I talk about poverty, for example, in Urbana, well, if we let them get poor enough, then they'll just leave,
Ouch.
Or if some of them, or if they don't have enough money, then they just starve. And that's the way the world is. And I'm sorry that I just don't believe that's what America should be about. I don't think that we should be okay with our fellow citizens starving and dying, or living in such squalor that would abhor most of us, because there's no way out for them because they're trapped, and the whole notion, right? You just work harder. It'll all be fine. There maybe was a time when that was true. It is not true today. And that's not just a millennial, perspective. You can look at the data and you can see that what you make today, the poorest among us, is not what the poorest among us made 50 years ago.
Exactly.
They're making less. Their money has less buying power. That's the important thing to understand. So the reason that I bring all that up is, no, we don't need to do it. Do I think that, at a minimum, we should be taking care of kids who we say, don't have all the same rights as adults yet? Yes, absolutely. And I think the data also backs that up. Even if you're going to be a cold-hearted SOB, okay, even if you're just all about the dollars and cents, then this study from these two Harvard University professors, Lance, tells us we should be investing a lot of money in kids. Mm-hmm. That's what it tells us.
Exactly.
It tells us that in children's health, children's education, and in college for kids, those areas we should be investing in because there is a return on investment. Okay. They're social programs that lift people out of the situation they're in and then yield us a return, a profit on what we initially put in.
We're making money.
Right.
A 60% profit, right? Or is it 47% profit? Is it 60 cents on a dollar or 47 cents on the dollar?
For children's health, okay, that's the biggest one, by the way. It's at about 75 cents. Okay.
You're almost doubling your money.
So you invest $1 and you will get your dollar back and make an additional 75 cents.
That's like a no-brainer, right?
Right.
Why would you argue against that? And why wouldn't you try to cover as many children as possible, since that is then the return? We're talking about, we're not, but so you're talking about the deficit. Why wouldn't you want to fund a program that's in the long run is going to make you money or save you even more money? If you make them healthier as children, then they don't cost as much money as they get older to take care of because they got a healthy start. Mm-hmm. Right? That's where the savings from.
Well, and hopefully,
on the back end, grandma and grandpa don't cost us as much money
Because they're healthier.
Because they've been healthier all their life. Right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm
the basics.
Making
right?
sure I understand. It's like,
I know.
Wow, this is, reading is fundamental. I mean, this is it, people. This is where the rubber meets the road. If you want to do good things with your tax dollars. And this is why I threw the question out. I don't feel that way. I feel very much like you do, that we should take care of people, that there is a moral issue in our country that we shouldn't let people starve and do without medical care. And that's not a left-wing socialist idea. That's just a humanitarian concept of taking care of your fellow man. And here we have it that the money you spend on children gives you this huge return. So why are we only helping a limited number of children? Why aren't we? And these programs are fantastic that are helping. Why aren't we helping all the children?
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, that's the jump I'm making. That's what I want to talk about today. Not so much the cost, and saying, oh, we got to cut these programs for the elderly or the ones that aren't making us money. No, because we should still fund those as well. My point is, why aren't we giving as much money as necessary to cover all the children?
So we're going to keep looking at this, and we're going to get our producer's perspective in just a moment, because I'm interested in the NHS self-identified conservatives' perspective on social programs as a whole. Just because I really do find this door knocking we've been doing, Lance, right? This canvassing,
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
It's been eye-opening.
Yeah. And it's not that this information wasn't available, but it is different. When Lance and I sit here in the studio and we talk about this stuff with Caleb and we plan our shows, reading it on paper is not the same as when you hear it come out of one of your fellow citizens' mouth, or you witness the way that they're living. Your ability to be heartless, at least for me, is substantially diminished when you're standing in the presence of what some people live with. We're going to keep talking about this, Lance, but why are we, there's Mueller right now, the Mueller investigation,
Mm-hmm.
the testimony, the drama from Capitol Hill, the reality TV. We're not talking about that though today, are we?
No, we're not.
No, we're talking about taking care of people, and we're doing that because of TrueChat's mission, which is, Lance.
Well, our mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations, trying to make the world a better place.
And if you don't think we're doing that, you can email ethics@truechat.org. Make the case to us, ethics@truechat.org. You want to get involved in the conversation? Thestateofus.org, thestateofus.org. We've got all the articles linked there. Look at the data for yourself. If you're coming to a different conclusion, we want to know. @TrueChat.org, @TrueChat.org. Before we keep going on our discussion, we're going to take a brief moment to hear from one of our sponsors. Welcome back. The U.S. spends trillions every year on a social safety net for people in all steps of life, from childhood to retirement. Again, referencing information from a Harvard University study and the Wall Street Journal today. Caleb, our producer, what's your take on social programs? And I don't want to self-label you too much. I think it's important because our listeners don't hear you as much as everybody else, that they understand.
Right.
Obviously, the NHS thing is facetious, but you are sorry
For some of you.
Well, yeah, right. Some of
us mean it.
Some of us mean it. So as a Gen Zer, I think I said as a millennial before, but that's a lie. As a Gen Zer, as somebody who lives in a small community, right? I mean, it's fair to say that 2,000 people is a small community.
Ooh, maybe not even that.
Okay.
Maybe, but regardless, tiny.
Yeah, tiny. Religious, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of the Christian faith.
Of the Catholic denomination of the Christian faith, yes.
As any good Catholic
we
would
love
say.
the details, right?
All right. Anyway, let us hear it. So what's the take? Social programs. Do we take care of people? We just say screw them. Sorry, that was harsh. I'm not.
Yeah.
I slipped in my own opinion there. What do we do? Do we take care of these people, or do we say, it's your life, it's your job to take care of yourself?
You take care of them to a certain degree. It shouldn't be, you've reached this age, you're going to be coddled like a child now. It should be, You need this help. You are not in a position where you can do yourself good or you can live on your own. You know, there's people, as I'm aware, that take advantage of these social services and of government welfare. And that's where I draw the line, where it's a service offered to you. Don't abuse the system because you only screw us all.
The problem.
So I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. And so therefore everybody else has got to suffer because I'm taking care
I didn't say
of.
that.
Yes, you did. Because you said, well, I get my Nikes, but you don't get them. I get my Air Jordans, but they don't get them.
I get my Nikes because my parents worked hard to get the money to buy my Nikes.
Oh, I see. Because they didn't have any built-in advantages over anybody else when they were growing up.
No, because somewhere along the line, somebody didn't pay attention and take school seriously. Somebody didn't pay attention in college and decided to party instead of going to class. And they messed their own future up.
And so that's the poor kid's fault. That's the child's fault.
We've seen self-made millionaires. We've seen first-generation college students, guys and girls that have worked from the bottom and have made their way to the top. We've seen it. It's not an anomaly. If they really have the desire,
it pretty much is an anomaly. You better look up your definition.
If they have the desire to get better, then they'll get better. And they will fight, scrap, tooth and nail to get to the top and get where they need to. If they're smart, yes, they will do that.
With a minimum wage that does not pay the bills.
All right, gentlemen.
Yelling does not make you right. All I'm doing is point, and the more you raise your voice, that means the more upset you're getting, which means you're not really sure in your belief because you can't stand by your words, so you have to get emotional.
I get emotional because it's close to heart.
Yes, it is.
I don't like people that take advantage.
Well, wait a minute. So the millionaire that buys 3 houses so they can use it as a tax write-off is not taking advantage of the system.
I didn't say that either.
Well, no, but
there's people that do it at every income level.
Exactly.
And I have problems with it at every income level.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
All right.
But that Justin's
cutting back in now. I shouldn't have let Lance respond first.
The best thing about this is we can still go on being friends after. That's one of the fun things.
But
about
that's the point of the state of us. I mean, in reality, obviously, it's easy to say, right? It's easy to say what our mission is. It's a different thing to practice it. And
Lance, what's my nickname for you?
Oh, Third Grandpa.
There you go.
In theory, Caleb, okay, in principle, does the idea of saying that we don't want to let those who take advantage of the system, it sounds good. I mean, sure, right? Who's not going to, Lance agrees with that in principle. We don't want to let people take advantage of systems, right? We want systems that are foolproof. The problem in practice becomes that often what we've done in the past because I would like to do that. I have known people who take advantage of the system, okay, at all levels. And I've taken, I mean, in full honesty and transparency, I have taken advantage of the system legally in different ways. And I still do to this day, because that's what people who have grown up in an environment who are predispositioned to get the most out of life they can do. They look for the ways to legally win the game, right? And if you can leverage the game to your advantage, that's what you do. I think part of what Lance is getting at is to say it's easy for those of us doing well to look at those not doing well and get upset at the way they leverage the system, when we are very slow to look at ourselves and say, yeah, but we leverage it in these ways, you know? So is it really all that different? Just because we don't like that a portion of our tax dollars helped that person leverage the system in a way to get a new flat screen, they probably also don't like that you paid less in taxes than they did, right? Not you, Caleb, but I mean, on the flip
generalization.
Side, right, right. Because that doesn't seem fair. Your tax rate is supposed to be, you know, we're talking somebody who's wealthy. You're supposed to be paying 25%, 30%, whatever it is, okay? And you paid half of that, or you paid none of it. And I'm poor, right? And I don't have any money. And there's a program out there, and I'd really love to have a TV that doesn't suck because my job sucks. I don't like my life very much, so I'd like something to bring me a little joy. And I leverage the system to get myself a new TV. Now, again, it's easy to be upset with either of those situations, but at the end of the day, are they all really that different? They have leveraged the system to achieve something they want.
Okay, and the other point is that I was going to try to make was that no matter what system you have, someone's going to take advantage of it. Does that mean the system is bad? It sounded like, I was hearing the argument that I hear all the time. Well, people take advantage of it, so therefore we stop doing it. And my point is, no matter what system you develop, there will be someone who takes advantage of it.
Sure.
And as far as the tax issue, we know that Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in America, is quoted as saying, my secretary pays more in personal income tax every year than I do.
Yes.
And he said and he admits there's something wrong with a system where someone like me, who is one of the richest people in America, can use the law and pay less in income tax than the person who answers my phone.
Yes. And so the point in all this, me bringing it up, is to go back to what we talked about before, which is that's, for me, Caleb, where the problem comes in, where the conflict comes in of when you actually look at the number, what the data tells us about the number of people that abuse the system. Is it higher than we want? Sure, because anything higher than 0 is more than what we would want. Is there a way to lessen it that doesn't harm more people than it avoids abusing the system? Not that we've found. I know that was a little convoluted, but what I'm saying is there a way to change it that would lessen the amount of people who abuse it without increasing by more than the amount it decreases the number of people who do need it and use it correctly? And the answer, generally speaking, has been no, we haven't figured that out yet. So what do we do? Do we do anything to it right now? I think what Lance is getting at, and this is how we want to end this, is talking about, I think we should all agree, whether you're cold-hearted, loving, that we can put more money into these areas that we know are a return on investment, right? Where we know if we put by far the biggest earner of social programs is children's health.
It's what Lance was saying before the show when we were getting out of the truck at the event center. You don't build on the old people that are going to be here for maybe 10 years. You build on the younger generation. You can't just focus on the ones that aren't going to be here very long. You got to build from the bottom. You got to build at the young ones so they can get better and have a better life and succeed that way.
And at the same time, you also don't want to neglect the available wisdom and talent that exists, especially as life expectancy continues. So
right, but I just mean if you're going to invest in one.
Right. I wasn't, that wasn't meant as a distraction from what you were saying, just as an also to that. And that's where the balance becomes difficult, because investing in adult health is a loser in terms of it's not gonna make you money back. We're just taking care of people, in most cases, who can no longer work or can't work to the same extent that they maybe once did. So it's not like, we're going to heal them and then they'll be able to go work really hard and earn us that money back in taxes. Unfortunately, because of the way our programs are set up, and even if they weren't set up this way, I'm not sure that you could fix that one unless we get into something that stops aging. And then maybe, right? Because then if you were 70 and still in the shape you were in when you were 30, then investing in adult health, then it makes all kinds of sense. But right now we can't do that. So that's maybe not as practical. By the way, Caleb, your answer from before, your little burg here in the great state of Ohio is at 1,675 people. So
there's
about 1,700. It's seen an 11.9% decline in population.
Huh.
Yes, but a growth in median household income and median property value. So there you have that.
How about that?
So Lance.
I'm here.
Yeah. Invest more in kids, right? Mm-hmm. What about these other programs though? Job training, cash transfer, housing vouchers, supplemental security income, nutrition, and unemployment insurance, and college for adults. That is all that stuff that I listed takes place. Actually, excuse me, college for adults is part of that. Everything that I just mentioned takes place between ages 20 and 40. Okay. The median age, where we're measuring this for our return on investment. Mm-hmm. They are all losers, with college for adults losing about 50 cents on the dollar, with the worst being unemployment insurance losing almost $2 on the dollar. Mm-hmm. Since these are not take care of people who are in retirement or who are of retirement age, what do we do with these ones? Because we're saying we leave alone taking care of old people because we've established that, those are losers because they were built that way. They weren't built to be winners. They were built to take care of people, not to take care of them with the motivation of getting them ahead.
Okay. I'm going to go back to what I said before. And that is, you can't just look at these programs unless you're going to take away the tax breaks for the wealthy as well. Because we're still...
When you say wealthy, what do you mean? Just so that our listeners are clear. What are we talking about?
Okay. And I guess we have to, but it's like, how does a gentleman like Warren Buffett pay less in income tax?
So we're talking about,
I do.
We're talking about people who are
take
making
away the tax breaks,
more than $10 million a year.
You change the tax code so that those people, because we could probably fund these social programs that are losing money if the 1%, as they're called out there in the public, if the 1%ers paid their fair share in taxes. And so those tax laws that were passed by the lawmakers to favor those individuals, if you want to take those away, then take away those programs for those 20 to 40-year-olds. But I think you're wrong to just look at taking away those programs that don't work for the people in need. I think you also have to then compare it to, okay, take away some of those programs for the people who don't need the government's help. And then I'm willing to talk. Okay. Then I'm willing to discuss and debate what we do.
So in other words, if it's across the board, we're going to try to trim.
But not just take 10% out of every program. No, I'm saying let's have
make every program more fair.
Let's have these discussions efficient on all these tax breaks that, okay, yes, technically they're open to all Americans, but most of us, 99% of us
for them
will never qualify for those tax breaks.
So in other words,
when you fix that problem, then I'm willing, this is what I'm saying. You fix that issue, then I'm willing to discuss cutting programs for the people in need. I'm not looking at it across the board. Okay, we're going to cut every program by 10%, because if you're making $10 million a year, a 10% cut for you isn't going to put you in the poorhouse, isn't going to mean you can't go to Aruba, isn't mean you can't buy shoes, have a roof over your head. You cut out 10% from some of these other programs, and all of a sudden you're going to be throwing people out on the street. So you can't just have an across the board. If that's what you meant by across the board.
What I meant was by across the board, we're looking at all the programs at once. In other words, we're not saying, we're just going to look at these programs, these social safety programs, right? Or we're just going to look at these programs for the wealthy, or we're just going to look at these programs for the middle American. We're going to look at the lot of it and say, what needs to be done here to help make the system as equitable as it can be? That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So that it's not, because that's the problem. The Democrats just want to attack. And again, this is a generalization, so take it for what it's worth, right? The furthest of the left would like to just attack the wealthy, and the furthest of the right would just like to kick people out onto the street and say, we're never going to help you.
It's their fault they're poor. It's their fault that they're...
Right. So, and the point is, like with most things, both of them need attention. Both require examining, and to just rule out willingness to examine either of those, I think is short-sighted.
I agree with that.
But let us know your thoughts, which you can do at TrueChat.org or on thestateofus.org, right, Lance?
That is correct.
And also on thestateofus.org, there's these helpful little listen badges. There are these things that you click and they open in another app, the places that you might commonly listen to podcasts, like what, Lance?
Oh, like Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and anywhere else fine podcasts are found.
For The State of Us on TrueChat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Willard.
I'm Lance Jackson.
And I'm Caleb Spinner.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.